What's going on, everyone? All right, jumping on, talk about one thing in particular, and that is the 50-year note. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I've had so many people reach out, so many comments, and everything else over the last 24 hours when people just started hearing about it. So I want to start off by saying that this is not something that's new. This is not something that was just brought into fruition over the last week or something like that. This has been tossed out there over the last couple of decades, to be honest, and more prevalent over the last decade. And the reason why is because it comes down to the affordability, which is one of the biggest aspects that not just my generation, the millennials, but also the Gen Zers are very conscious about and very worried about in terms of where am I going to be able to afford a house? How am I going to get into a house? So with that, let's dive in a little bit more to talk about this 50-year because it is going to be there. It is not going to go away. And I'm sure that it's going to be adopted by USAA and VA, Fannie, Freddie, all the people that are in the power to send out the mortgages and have the mortgages at that point. So let's dive in. So it's a kind of a big topic, sorry. But I understand the concerns. I understand, some people feel like this is going to be predatory, that this is going to, hurt the buyer versus helping them by terms of, they're going to actually be paying a lot more than what they should be paying and different aspects and capacities of that. So with that, let's just start slow. So we understand that the 60-year or 50-year mortgage is 600 months. We understand that you're going to have a lower monthly, but you're also going to be paying a lot more in the end. Now, let's say you have $1 million place, instead of with a 30-year mortgage at 1.1 million of excess and everything else with all the different numbers, you're now going to be paying closer to 1.6, if not 1.6 with this 50-year. But let's rewind because who here, as my friends, clients, consumers, general public, who here is going to keep a loan in a house at this point in their life who are not retirement age and everything else? Who's thinking about keeping their home for more than 10 years? Because at this rate and what's going on recently, people keep their homes only for about 5 to 10 years, where it used to be about 2 to 6, 7 years. It's now 5 to 10 years. So yeah, we are stretching it out a little bit, but it's not a 20-year aspect where people are like, oh my God, this 50-year makes so much more sense. I'm not going to do the 10-year. No one is sticking around for 30 years for their single home. So with that, that's one other aspect that we have to keep in mind. And as a consumer, also understand that if you have a 50-year, yeah, you're going to be paying a lower monthly, but you can also pay 13 months of your mortgage in 1 year versus just paying the 12 months, which is the bare minimum. So if you do one extra payment, if you can do two, that's great. But if you can do one extra payment a year, that just brings everything down to so much more. So then that way your monthly and everything else and how much you're paying over time is not affected in a gross, exorbitant kind of a way. So with that being said, let's dive into a couple of these things, and I have them written down. So there's 4 aspects of why people are talking about this and why this is starting to get more traction. First one is the affordability aspect. And the affordability is one of the biggest aspects that not just millennials, Gen Zers have on their mind, but also Gen X. I mean, people are looking at it like, oh my God, this is going to be great because I can now afford a little bit more. My monthly debt isn't so high. I can have, $300 extra a month to go and pay off some of my other debts or whatever else there is. So affordability is the first thing. But the next 3 things are what I think are very valuable in terms of why we need this 50-year. Rates stay elevated. And that's one thing that we've started seeing more and more about. Inventory is tight. You find a home, and if it's a cream puff of a home, then that's going to be gone, and you're going to have multiple offers and everything else because we're starting to see all of that coming back again. The last thing is first-time home buyers are struggling to qualify for that 30-year mortgage. So with a 50-year, it opens the door up more, and even for my nephews and some of my family members, it opens the door up more for you guys to have more of that buying power, to have more of that I'm going to get into this house because this is the house that I want. And that's the biggest aspect, I think, as to why this is such a good thing. Now let's go down to the criticism, and then we'll go to the positive sides of this as well. So people think it's predatory, because it increases the total interest dramatically, which it does, but you're also going into that knowing that. You're not going into it unknowing that this is what's happening, because there's also things that are already set up. So if you choose to do this, it's a choice. It's not like people are forcing you into it, and you also understand where the expenses and the funds are going. It encourages overpaying is another one. It delays home ownership and does not strengthen it. And one of the biggest aspects that I think a lot of people are talking about or stating without necessarily having all the knowledge is, and it kind of goes into the predatory aspect too, but it protects the lenders and not the consumers. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are worried about. Now, let's talk about the defensive side of this. Housing affordability is broken. Buyers need options. It's a very, very tough time to find a house, let alone to get a loan amount. I mean, everyone knows that the debt ceiling in America is really high right now, very high. And so this is one thing that's going to allow for people to jump in and to get that home that they want, and something that's a little bit more secure and feels like, home and not just a house. The last thing is that it gives flexibility in high cost markets. Now, I'm in Colorado, I'm in Denver. Denver is one of those high cost markets. LA is, San Francisco, New York, Miami, Nashville, Seattle. I mean, the list can go on. There's several places that are very high cost, and even Chicago's in there as well. This will help with prices where prices are, by allowing people who have that higher income or monthly debt to be able to afford something with their current income. So last thing I want to talk about, and last thing I want to say, because I have this also written down, is a 50-year mortgage isn't mainstream right now. It's mainly a talking point in the affordability conversation, which is something that I just discussed. All it really does is stretch the loan term so buyers get a lower monthly payment. It's not predatory by design, it's simply math. Again, you're going into it knowing these different aspects are going on. But the trade-off is clear. You save month to month, and you pay much more over time. What people forget is that most Americans do not keep their mortgage for 30 years anyway. They refinance or move within that 7 to 10 year mark. So this 50-year talk of, oh my God, this is just killing everybody, and this is and this is not making home ownership any easier, it's kind of negated, to be honest. So the last thing I got to say is, so the real question isn't, is a 50-year note good or bad? The real question that people should be asking is, does this help someone get into a home they otherwise couldn't? And do they have a plan for what comes next? Now, the final thing to say about that is, as a homeowner, as someone that's owned homes, and as a realtor, I understand with where people are skittish about. But once you get into a home, do you have a plan for everything that comes next? For the upkeep, for the maintenance, for the insurances, for taxes, for all of those things that get combined into home ownership? Do you have a plan for what's next? And if not, let's sit down, let's talk, let's get into this, and let's really figure out how you can actually benefit from something like this. Because I strongly believe, and it doesn't matter what price point somebody's at, I strongly believe everyone deserves a roof over their head. And I hope that you guys have a great day. Stay safe. If you have questions, text me, call me, comment down below, do all the bits, all the things, and I will be here for you guys. I'll reach out one-on-one. You can find me on social medias, and I really hope that you guys have a wonderful day. Take it easy. Cheers.